This past Sunday, we held the 13th semi-annual Punks auction, before the commencement of which something happened. An incident of sorts took place, more about which I will discuss momentarily. However, first, I wonder, if you happen to be on board a bus and you look out the window at a highly public area in broad daylight in the middle of the day, and you beheld two individuals, one of whom was lighting a cigarette for the other, I expect you wouldn't give this very much thought. It's a sort of everyday occurrence which you might in fact see every day. On the other hand, suppose you look out the window of a bus at a highly public area in the middle of the day in broad daylight, and you beheld two individuals, one of whom held an ignited cigarette lighter to the underside of a spoon so that he could liquefy the black tar heroin which he was drawing up into the ampule of a syringe, loading a rig for the other person, while they were both casually engaged in conversation, no doubt discussing how unseasonably warm it has been as of late. A few weeks ago, I was on board a bus, and two ladies came racing past me down the aisle to complain to the driver, who in turn got on the microphone and made an announcement. "There is no smoking on the bus." I turned and looked, and in the back row, sitting next to an open window, was an old guy who in fact appeared to have been smoking. And I remember as I faced front, thinking, well, that doesn't really seem all that alarming, for after all, it wasn't too long ago that you could smoke anywhere. Aboard aeroplanes, in elevators, in hospitals, and indeed on the bus. Everywhere you could smoke. It didn't seem all that big of a deal. Until he rang the bell for a stop, and as he was disembarking, I happened to notice that he wasn't carrying a cigarette lighter and a cigarette. He had been smoking a crack pipe on the bus. About a month prior, I was walking to the bus stop, and I passed by the rear side of a dollar store. And there converged were several security guards, a few janitors, some dollar store employees, and in fact a few customers. And they were all centered around an area where something seemed to have transpired. And I could only surmise what as I passed by, owing to what I saw. It would appear that a person, or maybe even several people, had gone inside of that dollar store and, not content to steal merely one or two balls of yarn from their sewing section, in fact, not even set upon stealing all of the yarn, the entire inventory. They stole every single ball of yarn and also the metal rack encasement, the shelving units themselves, ran out the door with them, came around to the back of the dollar store, and then, for reasons known only to them, reasons which no doubt made perfect sense, they proceeded to set all of this yarn on fire. They set it ablaze. This is what I surmised as I walked past, seeing the scorched and smoldering embers, the charred remains of sewing notions. Prior to that, I was waiting for the bus on Southeast 82nd Avenue. And as I sat there, a couple came racing past, the girlfriend of which said, "Just be forewarned, crazy naked lady coming around the corner." I didn't know quite what to make of that, until, a few minutes later, coming right down the middle of the street, Southeast 82nd Avenue, in rush hour traffic, clad in only a pair of socks, a naked woman, screaming at the top of her lungs, talking out of her head, yelling obscenities and intermittently demanding a cigarette, as all the motorists swerved to avoid her, blaring on their horns, yelling obscenities back at her, and, on occasion, laughing at this woman as she stood stark naked in the middle of Southeast 82nd Avenue, screaming out of her head. Before the commencement of the Punks auction, one of your cousins, who was kind enough to help with the transportation, realizing that to park in the conventional way, would entail trip after trip of unloading the merchandise up onto the hilltop amongst the trees where the auction took place. And so instead he took the initiative of jumping the curb, driving his truck all the way up to the top of the hill so that we might unload easily. After which he had every intention of driving back downhill and parking in the proper conventional way. While he was settled up there and we were unloading, a couple passed by. And within seconds, the wife was on the telephone. At which point she turned to your cousin and said, after she'd already dialed, after she had already prepared to lodge this complaint, "Are you planning to move that? Are you going to move that truck? Because I'm already on the telephone with 911. I'm already calling to report you." 911. The emergency number. This apparently meriting the designation of emergency, this urgent crisis which he had encountered. Priorities and prioritization on a personal level is a deeply private affair. It belongs to you to prioritize for yourself that which affects your life. It is up to you to decide that which is significant, that which is trivial, that which is urgent, and that which is nominal. However, on a civic level, on a community level, ostensibly, theoretically, the prioritization is supposed to be a reflection of a consolidated, concentrated focus upon that which is perhaps a benefit to the community, but more to the point, that which is a detriment to the community, that which poses a threat to and an emergency within the community, and is likewise supposed to comprise a mutual effort to engage in and address these factors for the better of the collective community. In your city, the prioritization, indeed the concept of prioritization, is schizophrenically fractured, possibly even damaged beyond repair. And the only passable excuse for this overlooking of rampant mental illness, can only be insanity in and of itself. That is to say, it suggests, possibly even confirms, that every single citizen of your city is in fact themselves insane, on some level deranged, mentally ill, sick. Because if this divergent prioritization is in fact both sane and sober, premeditated, thought out, rational in the eye of the beholder, and therefore level-headed, and therefore sanctimoniously in the right, if this is all done sanely, then the situation in your city is going to deteriorate at such a rate that it will get endlessly worse before it ever even approaches getting any better.